You know what scares me more than failure? Waking up one day at the end of my life and realizing I lived the same year 75 times in a row and called it a life. We live in the most distracted, overstimulated, overwhelmed time in human history. And yet, most people aren't living, they're just existing. We scroll instead of speak. We react instead of create. We survive instead of thrive. But here's the truth no one tells you: your life can change in a moment, the moment you decide you're done playing small. The moment you stop letting fear, doubt, and comfort chains dictate your future. Today, I'm not here to give you fluff. I'm here to give you fire. I'm going to share the 5 things that are lighting me up right now, the exact tools, mindsets, and habits that are breaking my own limits and will shatter yours. And if you think this is just another motivational talk, I dare you to try and leave. Because the next 30 to 40 minutes might be the moment you remember for the rest of your life. The way you start your morning is the way you live your day. And the way you live your days becomes the way you live your life. Think about that for a moment. Every single sunrise is an opportunity to shape your mindset, your focus, and your energy before the world has a chance to pull you in 100 different directions. Most people wake up and immediately hand over control of their mind to notifications, emails, and the endless scroll of social media. The first thing they see is someone else's agenda, someone else's life, someone else's crisis. That's like waking up and pouring junk into your brain before you've even given it a chance to breathe. For me, my morning ritual is one of my absolute favorite things right now. It's not complicated, it's not expensive, but it's priceless to me. The first thing I do when I open my eyes is take a deep breath and acknowledge one thing I'm grateful for. Not a vague, I'm grateful for life, but something specific. The sound of the rain outside, the fact that my body carried me through yesterday, the chance to speak to people like you today. This simple practice sets the tone for my mind before I even get out of bed. Then I move. Not hours of exercise, not a full gym session, just 20 minutes of getting my blood pumping. It could be stretching, yoga, a quick bodyweight circuit, or even a brisk walk. Why? Because movement creates energy, and energy is the fuel your brain needs to perform at its best. Science shows that even light exercise increases blood flow to the brain, wakes up your nervous system, and improves focus for hours. That means by the time I sit down to work or speak, my mind is sharp and ready. After that, I give my mind a gift, reading for 20 minutes. This isn't scrolling articles or skimming posts. This is intentional reading that feeds my growth. A few chapters of a book on neuroscience, a biography of someone who inspires me, or a skill I want to master. This is important because your brain is like a sponge in the morning. It absorbs deeply. Whatever you put in first thing often stays with you all day. If you feed it learning, you carry that sense of expansion with you. Now here's the key. During this first hour, I do not touch my phone. That's right, no email, no messages, no news. I call it protecting my brain's prime real estate. The first 60 minutes after waking are when your mind is most open, most suggestible, and most capable of deep thought. If you allow noise into it too soon, you scatter your focus before you've even had the chance to direct it. By guarding this time, I'm telling myself and my brain, I decide what matters today. Some people might say they don't have time for this, but here's the truth: you don't have time not to. Starting your day with intention is like sharpening your axe before chopping wood. The work becomes faster, cleaner, and more effective. Without it, you're swinging wildly and exhausting yourself for far less progress. I've seen this transform people's lives. A friend of mine used to wake up rushing, already stressed before breakfast. She decided to try a modified morning ritual. Just 10 minutes of stretching, 10 minutes of gratitude journaling, and 10 minutes of reading. Within 2 weeks, she was calmer, more focused, and she told me she felt like she owned her mornings for the first time in years. That ownership bled into her work, her relationships, and even her sleep. If you've ever felt like your day runs you instead of you running your day, this is your chance to change that. Tomorrow morning, before you let the outside world in, choose one intentional habit. It doesn't have to be my exact routine. Maybe it's meditation, maybe it's writing, maybe it's simply sitting quietly with your coffee and no screens. What matters is that it's yours, chosen, deliberate, and repeated enough to become a ritual. And don't just try it once and say it didn't work. Give it a week. Give it 2. Let your brain and body adjust to the rhythm. You might be surprised how quickly it becomes something you look forward to. There's a quiet power in knowing that no matter what chaos the day brings, you've already done something for yourself, for your mind, your body, and your spirit. Starting your day with intention is an act of self-respect. It's a declaration that you matter, your growth matters, and your mental state matters. That's not selfish. That's the foundation for everything else you give to the world. You can't pour from an empty cup, and your morning ritual is how you fill it. So here's my challenge to you tomorrow morning. Protect your first hour like it's sacred. No phone, no noise, just presence, movement, and learning. Do it for a week. See how you feel. And if you find yourself walking into your day calmer, clearer, and more confident, you'll understand why this is one of my favorite things right now and why it might just become one of yours too. Your brain is the most powerful technology on the planet, and yet most people are walking around with outdated software. Imagine carrying the latest smartphone but never updating the apps. You wouldn't be able to take advantage of new features, better speed, or stronger security. That's what it's like when we stop learning after school. We're using an old operating system to try to solve new problems. I believe lifelong learning isn't just a nice idea. It's a survival skill in the 21st century. The world is changing faster than ever before, and the people who will thrive are not necessarily the ones with the most degrees, but the ones who can adapt, unlearn, and relearn quickly. One of my favorite things right now is the process of learning something new every single day. Not just casually, not just when it's convenient, but intentionally making learning part of my identity. For me, that currently means learning a new language. I don't need it for my work. I don't have a deadline, but I do it because I want my brain to keep growing. The science is clear. Learning a new skill, especially one that challenges different areas of your brain, strengthens neural connections and even builds new ones. It's like giving your brain a workout, except instead of building biceps, you're building adaptability, memory, and creativity. Now, learning a new language at my stage in life isn't easy. It's humbling to go from being an expert in your field to feeling like a beginner who can't even form a basic sentence. But that humility is a gift. It reminds me that growth lives in the discomfort zone. Every time I get a word wrong or forget a phrase, I'm rewiring my brain. Every moment of confusion is my brain firing up, making new pathways and getting stronger. The mistake most people make is thinking learning stops after a certain age. They'll say, I'm too old for this, or my memory isn't what it used to be. But the truth is, your memory isn't something you lose. It's something you neglect. If you stop using it, it gets weaker. If you challenge it, it gets sharper. Think of your brain like a muscle. If you don't lift, it won't grow. If you don't stretch, it won't stay flexible. A practical way to start is with something I call micro-learning. You don't need hours a day. Start with 20 minutes. Read a chapter of a book. Listen to a podcast on a subject you know nothing about. Watch a documentary. Take an online course. The key is consistency. Your brain thrives on repetition and reward. So the more often you show up for learning, the more it becomes second nature. I remember a man I met after one of my talks. He was in his late 60s, recently retired and feeling lost. He told me, Jim, I don't even know who I am without my job. I challenged him to commit to learning something completely new for the next 30 days. He chose photography. At first, he fumbled with the camera settings, frustrated that nothing came out the way he imagined. But by the end of the month, his eyes lit up when he spoke about it. He told me he hadn't felt that alive in years. Learning gave him purpose again. Here's the emotional truth: when we stop learning, we stop living. The brain craves novelty. It lights up when it encounters new information, when it has to solve a puzzle, when it has to stretch beyond what it already knows. Without that, life becomes repetitive, predictable, and dull. That's when days blur together and years pass without growth. Learning doesn't just make you smarter, it makes you more confident. When you expand your skills, you expand your identity. You start to see yourself as capable, resourceful, and resilient. That confidence spills over into every area of your life. You approach challenges differently because you know you can figure things out. If you want to join me in making learning one of your favorite things, here's my challenge. Pick something, anything, that excites you or scares you a little. It could be a language, a sport, an instrument, coding, cooking a new cuisine, or even learning how to improve your memory. Commit to spending 20 minutes a day on it for the next 30 days. No skipping, no excuses. Track your progress, not just in skill, but in how you feel. And if you hit a wall, and you will, remember this frustration is a sign of growth. It means your brain is trying to understand something new. Push through it. That's where the transformation happens. Don't focus on how far you have to go. Focus on showing up today. Because every time you learn something new, you're not just gaining knowledge, you're building the person who will handle whatever the future throws at you. I want you to imagine the version of yourself 6 months from now if you started learning today. Imagine the skills you'll have, the confidence you'll feel, the doors that will open. That's not some distant dream. That's a choice you can make right now. Learning is the bridge between who you are and who you want to be. And every step you take across it changes you for the better. So don't wait. Don't tell yourself you'll start when things calm down or when you have more time. The truth is, life never slows down and you will never magically find the time. You have to make it start today. Feed your brain something new. Give it a challenge to chew on. Fall in love with learning again. And watch how it transforms not just your mind, but your life. When I think about the moments that matter most in my life, they're almost never about achievements, titles, or the size of an audience. They're about people. They're about the connections that made me feel alive, seen, and understood. At the end of the day, human beings are wired for connection, yet so many of us are starving for it in a world where we've never been more digitally linked and more emotionally disconnected. We scroll, we like, we comment, but deep down we're craving something real, something human. That's why one of my favorite things right now is the practice of choosing connection over perfection. Here's what I mean. Perfection is a lie we've been sold. It tells us that we need to present the best, most polished version of ourselves in order to be loved or accepted. It makes us curate our lives like we're running our own marketing campaigns, where the flaws get cropped out and the mess gets hidden. But here's the truth. Real connection doesn't happen when we're perfect. It happens when we're honest. It happens when we're willing to show the messy parts, the unfinished parts, the human parts. For me, this practice shows up in something simple but incredibly powerful. My weekly tech dinner with friends. Once a week, we gather around a table. Phones go into a basket at the door. No one is half present. No one is sneaking glances at notifications. No one is hiding behind a screen. We just sit, eat, and talk. Sometimes the conversation is deep and vulnerable. Sometimes it's light and ridiculous, but every time it's real. I can't tell you how much this has grounded me. In those hours, I'm reminded that joy doesn't come from a perfectly structured plan or a flawless presentation. It comes from the imperfect, unfiltered presence of being with people who matter. The emotional hook here is this: one day, someone you love will be gone. One day, you'll wish for one more dinner, one more laugh, one more ordinary moment together. And in that moment, you won't care if the house was spotless, if your hair was perfect, or if the conversation went exactly as planned. You'll care that you were there, you'll care that you showed up. And if you're too busy chasing perfection now, you might be missing the chance to build those memories while you still can. I think of a friend of mine who used to avoid hosting gatherings because she felt her home wasn't ready. She'd say, "When I remodel the kitchen, then I'll invite people over. When I get the right furniture, then I'll host dinners." Years went by. Life changed. Some of the people she wanted to invite moved away. Some passed away. And she realized she'd been waiting for a version of perfect that never came. Now she invites people into her space exactly as it is. Sometimes messy, sometimes noisy. And she says she's never felt richer. Choosing connection over perfection means you stop letting fear of judgment control your relationships. It means you accept that showing up fully, even when things aren't polished, is better than not showing up at all. And it doesn't have to be grand gestures. It could be calling a friend you haven't spoken to in years, sending a voice message instead of a text, making eye contact with the cashier at the grocery store and genuinely asking how their day is going. Every small act of connection builds a bridge, and those bridges become the foundation of a meaningful life. There's also something freeing about not trying to be on all the time. When you put down the mask of perfection, you give others permission to do the same. I've seen it happen in conversations where one person shares a real struggle, and suddenly the whole tone shifts. People open up, walls come down, and what started as small talk turns into something that can change a relationship forever. So here's a practical challenge this week. Choose one meal to be fully present with someone you care about. No phone on the table, no background TV, no multitasking, just presence. It might feel uncomfortable at first if you're used to constant stimulation, but lean into it. Listen more than you speak. Ask questions that go beyond, "How's your day?" Pay attention not just to their words, but to their tone, their expressions, their pauses. Let them feel that you're there with them, not just near them. You might discover that this person you've known for years has a whole world inside them you've never taken the time to explore. Or you might simply share a laugh that lightens your week. Either way, you'll have created something far more valuable than a perfect performance. You'll have created connection. In my own life, these moments have become the anchors that keep me steady in a fast-paced, noisy world. They remind me of who I am beyond my work, beyond my goals, beyond my public image. They remind me that I am human first and everything else second. And that's a lesson I want to carry with me always. If you start choosing connection over perfection, you'll notice something amazing. Life becomes less stressful. You stop measuring yourself against impossible standards. You start feeling more gratitude for the people around you. And those people, feeling truly seen and valued, begin to show up for you in return. It's a cycle of authenticity that grows stronger with every interaction. So stop waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect outfit, the perfect conversation starter. Call that person now. Invite them over now. Say what's on your heart now. Because connection, unlike perfection, doesn't require ideal conditions. It just requires you. And when you choose connection, you don't just make memories. You make a life worth remembering. Every time you say yes to something, you are saying no to something else. Most people don't realize this because the cost isn't immediate, but it's there. Every time you agree to a meeting you don't need to be in, every time you commit to a project you don't believe in, Every time you attend an event out of guilt or obligation, you're trading away a piece of your time, your energy, and your focus. And those are the three things you can never truly get back. One of my favorite things right now is the joy and freedom that comes from saying no. It's not about being selfish or closed off. It's about being deeply intentional with the life you're building. For a long time, I struggled with this myself. I wanted to help everyone. I didn't want to let anyone down. If someone asked me to speak, I'd try to rearrange my life to make it happen. If a friend wanted to meet, I'd push aside my own needs to accommodate them. I thought saying yes meant I was being generous, kind, and hardworking. But what I didn't see at the time was that my constant yes was diluting my impact. I was exhausted, distracted, and spread so thin that even when I showed up, I wasn't showing up fully. It took a specific moment to wake me up. I was invited to a big event that would have looked great on paper. High profile, lots of networking, potentially new opportunities. But it was the same week as an important family milestone, one that would never come again. I was tempted to say yes, to follow the script I always had, but something in me knew the cost. I said no to the event. I said yes to my family. And I can tell you without hesitation, it was one of the best decisions of my life. The event came and went. The relationships I feared missing out on, they were still there later. But the moment with my family, the memory we made, is priceless to me. The emotional truth is that most of us are terrified of missing out, so we overcommit. We say yes because we're afraid of disappointing others, or because we think we might miss the one opportunity that changes everything. But here's the thing, opportunities are abundant. Your energy, attention, and time are not. If you spend them carelessly, you end up living a life that's busy but not meaningful. Full but not fulfilling. Saying no can feel uncomfortable at first, especially if you've built a habit of pleasing others. You might fear being judged, misunderstood, or even rejected. But when you learn to say no with clarity and kindness, something shifts. People start to respect your boundaries. You begin to feel more in control of your life. And most importantly, you make space for the things that truly matter to you. This isn't just theory. I've seen people transform when they start practicing intentional no's. One friend of mine used to run a small business and was constantly burning out. She felt she had to say yes to every client request, every networking lunch, every speaking panel. I challenged her to identify 3 priorities for her business and her personal life, and to start saying no to anything that didn't directly align with those. At first, it felt impossible. She worried she'd lose clients or damage relationships, but within months, she found herself working with fewer but better clients, spending more time with her family, and actually enjoying her work again. She told me, "I didn't realize how much my yes was costing me until I started saying no." A practical way to approach this is to pause before you respond to any request. Ask yourself, does this align with my values, my goals, and my current priorities? If the answer is no, or if it's only a yes out of guilt or fear, then it's a no. You don't have to be rude. You can say, "Thank you for thinking of me, but I can't commit to this right now." The key is to give yourself permission to protect your time without apology. And here's something important. Every no creates space for a bigger yes. When you're not drowning in obligations that drain you, you can show up with full energy for the commitments that light you up. You're no longer just reacting to life, you're designing it. That's the real power of the word no. When you master this, you also become a better friend, partner, leader, and creator. Because instead of showing up tired and half present, you arrive engaged, energized, and ready to give your best. And people feel the difference. They would much rather have you present for one thing, fully, than half present for 10 things. The joy of saying no is not about shutting the world out. It's about making sure that what gets in is worthy of your time and attention. It's about deciding that your energy is too precious to waste on things that don't move you closer to the life you want to live. It's about living on purpose instead of by default. So my challenge to you is this: over the next week, notice every time you feel tempted to say yes automatically. Pause, ask yourself if this is a true yes or a disguised no. And if it's a no, speak it with confidence and kindness. Then use that reclaimed time and energy for something that matters. Whether that's working on a passion project, being with loved ones, or simply resting, you might be surprised by how freeing it feels. At first, you may even feel guilty. That's okay. Guilt is just an old habit arguing with your new boundaries. But if you stick with it, that guilt turns into clarity, and that clarity turns into peace. And one day, you'll look at your calendar and realize that every single thing on it is there because you chose it, not because it was forced upon you. That's when you know you're living with intention. That's when saying no becomes one of your greatest joys. Curiosity has been one of the greatest forces in my life. It's the reason I've been able to grow, learn, and connect in ways I never imagined when I was younger. Yet somewhere along the way, many of us lose it. As children, we're relentless question askers. We want to know how the sky changes color, why birds can fly, why people laugh when they're happy and cry when they're sad. We don't worry about looking foolish, we just want to understand the world. But as we get older, something shifts. We start worrying about having the right answers instead of asking better questions. We trade curiosity for certainty, and in the process, we stop growing in the same way we once did. One of my favorite things right now is a small, simple practice that keeps my curiosity alive. I carry a small notebook, and every single day I write down one question that excites me. It doesn't matter if it's big or small, profound or playful. It could be something like, what would happen if I learned to paint? Or, what can I do today to make someone feel truly seen? Or even, why do some people light up a room the moment they walk in? The point isn't to find all the answers right away. The point is to train my brain to look at life with wonder again. When you start asking better questions, your life opens up. Curiosity is the antidote to stagnation. It's what turns ordinary days into adventures, what transforms mistakes into lessons, and what makes every person you meet a potential teacher. I remember meeting a man on a long flight who seemed quiet at first. Normally, it would have been easy to just make polite small talk and go back to my book, but I decided to ask him a question that went beyond the surface. What's the most meaningful thing you've ever created? His face lit up, and for the next 2 hours, he told me stories about his work building schools in underdeveloped areas. That conversation stayed with me for years. It wouldn't have happened if I'd stayed in autopilot. The emotional truth is that curiosity doesn't just make you smarter, it makes you more connected. When you're curious about people, you listen more deeply, you notice more, and you make them feel valued. People can feel when your interest is genuine, and that builds trust faster than almost anything else. In a world where so many interactions are shallow and rushed, curiosity is like fresh air. The other gift curiosity gives you is resilience. When life throws you challenges, curiosity turns those challenges into puzzles instead of problems. Instead of thinking, why is this happening to me? You can ask, what can I learn from this? How can this make me stronger? Who can help me figure this out? That shift in perspective changes how you feel and how you act. It keeps you moving forward instead of getting stuck. Of course, staying curious requires intention. It's easy to let routine and responsibilities narrow your focus until you're just going through the motions. That's why I like my daily question habit. It forces me to pause and engage with life in a different way. And I don't just write the questions, I try to act on them. If I write, what's one new skill I could try this month? I'll spend a few minutes researching options or talking to someone who's already skilled in that area. If I write, what's the most beautiful spot within an hour of my home? I'll make plans to explore it. This keeps curiosity from being just a mental exercise and turns it into action. I also love using curiosity to break down assumptions. We all carry beliefs about ourselves, about other people, and about the world that might not be entirely true. By asking, what if the opposite were true? You can challenge those beliefs and discover new possibilities. For example, if you believe you're not creative, ask, what would it look like if I were? Then take one small step in that direction. You might surprise yourself. A friend of mine applied this mindset in a powerful way. She had always been afraid of public speaking, convinced she was terrible at it. But instead of avoiding it forever, she got curious. What would it take for me to enjoy speaking in front of people? That question led her to join a local speaking club. Within a year, she was not only speaking comfortably, but actually loving it. Curiosity turned a fear into a strength. So here's my challenge to you, start a curiosity notebook. Every day for the next 30 days, write down one question that excites you. It can be about anything, yourself, someone else's skill, a mystery in the world. Then when you can follow that question somewhere, read about it, experiment with it, talk to someone who knows more. Treat it like a treasure map, where every question is a clue that leads you to something valuable. Don't worry if some questions seem silly or if you never find the right answer. This isn't about getting it perfect. It's about reigniting that childlike wonder you had before you learned to play it safe. When you live with curiosity, every day has the potential to surprise you. Every conversation can change your perspective. Every obstacle can teach you something you didn't know you needed to learn. And maybe the best part is this curiosity makes life feel bigger. It reminds you that there's always more to see, more to know, more to experience. It keeps you from falling into the trap of thinking you've seen it all, done it all, or become all you can be. Because the truth is, you haven't, and that's exciting. If you embrace curiosity, you'll find yourself saying yes to opportunities you might have ignored, meeting people you might have overlooked, and discovering strengths you didn't know you had. You'll live in a constant state of learning, not because you have to, but because you can't help yourself. That's a powerful way to move through the world. So tomorrow, wake up and ask yourself one question that excites you. Carry it with you like a secret mission. Let it guide your actions and your attention, and by the end of the day, you'll see the difference. Curiosity, once awakened, doesn't fade, it grows. And the more you feed it, the more it will feed you in return. Gratitude has a way of changing the entire atmosphere of your life. It's more than just saying thank you when something good happens. It's a state of being, a way of looking at the world that makes everything brighter. Even when circumstances aren't perfect, one of my favorite things right now is starting and ending my day with intentional gratitude. I'm not talking about a quick, yeah. I'm thankful for my family, my job, and my health. I mean, slowing down enough to really feel it, to let it sink into your bones. It's easy to take the good things for granted when you're caught up in the business of life. You might wake up, rush to your phone, dive into emails, and before you know it, you're knee deep in problems, deadlines, and noise. Gratitude interrupts that pattern. It's like pressing pause and giving yourself permission to notice what's already working in your life. The warmth of your coffee in the morning, the sunlight spilling through the window, the fact that you woke up breathing with another chance to live this day. These moments are tiny, but when you train yourself to see them, they add up to something powerful. I remember a time in my life when I felt stuck and frustrated. No matter how hard I worked, I felt like I wasn't making enough progress. My mind was constantly focused on what I didn't have, what I hadn't done, and how far I still had to go. A mentor challenged me to keep a gratitude journal for 30 days. At first, it felt forced. I wrote things like, I'm grateful for my house, or I'm grateful for my health, without much emotion behind it. But about a week in, something shifted. I started noticing things throughout the day because I knew I'd be writing them down later. A smile from a stranger, a conversation with a friend, a great song on the radio at the exact moment I needed it. Suddenly, my focus was expanding. The emotional truth is that gratitude rewires your brain. Neuroscience shows us that when you practice it consistently, you actually strengthen neural pathways that make it easier to spot the positive. This doesn't mean ignoring challenges or pretending everything is perfect. It means you're building resilience by balancing the hard stuff with the good. When life gets tough, gratitude becomes a lifeline, a reminder that even in the middle of struggle, there are still reasons to hope, reasons to keep going. One of the most moving examples I've seen came from a friend who went through a serious illness. She spent months in and out of hospitals, facing uncertainty every day. But she told me that one of the things that kept her going was a daily ritual each night. She would write down 3 things she was grateful for. Some days, it was as simple as, I kept my food down today, or the nurse made me laugh. Other days it was bigger. My scan results were stable. She said that without that practice, she might have drowned in fear. Gratitude didn't take away her pain, but it gave her something to hold on to. Gratitude also changes how you treat others. When you're in a grateful state, you're more likely to acknowledge people's efforts, to thank them sincerely, to make them feel seen. Think about the last time someone expressed genuine gratitude to you. Not just a polite thank you, but the kind where you could feel their appreciation. Didn't it make you want to keep giving your best? That's the power of gratitude in relationships. It strengthens bonds, builds trust, and creates an atmosphere where people want to contribute. If you want to make gratitude a habit, here's something practical you can try. In the morning, before you check your phone, write down 3 things you're grateful for. They don't have to be huge. In fact, the smaller and more specific, the better. Then, at night, write down 3 more from your day. Over time, you'll notice you're more present, more aware of the little joys that used to slip by unnoticed. Another way to amplify gratitude is to express it directly to someone. Send a quick message telling them how they've impacted your life. Write a letter to a mentor, a friend, or even a family member. Not only will it make their day, but it will deepen your own feeling of connection. The act of giving gratitude multiplies it. I also believe in practicing gratitude for challenges. It's not easy, but when you can find a lesson, a hidden blessing, or a sign of growth in something painful, it transforms your relationship with difficulty. For example, I'm grateful for the times I've failed, because those failures taught me resilience and humility. I'm grateful for moments of uncertainty because they forced me to trust myself and adapt. This doesn't mean I enjoy hardship. It means I choose to see it as part of the bigger picture that's shaping me. Over time, gratitude becomes less of a practice and more of a perspective. You start to walk through life with an open heart, noticing the beauty in places you once overlooked. You begin to expect good things, not in a naive way, but because you've trained your mind to see possibility instead of just problems. And when setbacks happen, you recover faster because you never lose sight of what's still good. So here's my call to action for the next 7 days. Commit to writing down 3 things you're grateful for every morning and 3 every night. Make them specific. Don't just say, my friends. Say, the friend who called me today to check in. Don't just say, my health. Say, the way my body felt strong when I went for a walk this morning. The more detailed, the more powerful the effect. At the end of the week, look back at your list. You'll probably notice patterns. People who keep showing up for you, Moments that matter more than you realized. And you'll also notice something else: you feel lighter, calmer, more grounded. That's gratitude at work. It's not magic, but it can feel like it because it changes the way you experience everything. Gratitude doesn't cost anything, but it pays you back in ways you can't measure. It turns what you have into enough. It reminds you that, even in hard times, there's beauty and goodness worth noticing. And once you start seeing it, you'll wonder how you ever lived without it. One of my favorite things right now is learning through teaching. There's a magic that happens when you take something you've discovered, understood, or practiced in your own life and share it with someone else. It's not just about passing on information. It's about connection, clarity, and growth on both sides. Every time I teach something, I find myself understanding it more deeply, noticing details I'd missed before, and even discovering new insights in the middle of explaining them. It's like the knowledge comes alive in a different way when it's shared. We often think we have to be experts before we can teach, but that's not true. If you've learned something that has helped you, even in a small way, you're already qualified to share it with someone who hasn't learned it yet. In fact, some of the most impactful lessons I've ever received came from people who were just 1 or 2 steps ahead of me. They hadn't mastered everything, but they had figured out something that could save me time, energy, or frustration. Teaching isn't about perfection, it's about contribution. When I was first starting to improve my memory and learning skills, I used to practice explaining those techniques to friends over coffee. Sometimes I stumbled over my words. Sometimes I realized I didn't fully understand a step. But each time I got clearer. By teaching, I was testing my own understanding. If I couldn't explain it simply, I knew I had more to learn. That process made me better at what I was doing, faster than if I had just kept studying alone. The emotional power of teaching is that it makes you feel useful. We all have a deep human need to contribute, to feel like our presence matters in someone else's life. When you teach, you see the light bulb go on in someone's eyes. You see their confidence grow because of something you said, and that feeling is addictive in the best way. It's not about ego, it's about impact. You realize you can leave people better than you found them. Teaching also forces you to stay engaged with your own learning. If you know you're going to explain something to someone else, you pay closer attention when you're learning it yourself. You take better notes, you ask better questions, you anticipate the gaps or challenges they might face. That kind of intentional learning not only makes you a better teacher, it makes you a sharper thinker. I remember working with a young man who was struggling with productivity. I taught him a simple technique, breaking his work into 25-minute focused intervals with short breaks in between. A week later, he came back to me excited. Not only had it worked for him, but he had taught it to 2 of his coworkers, and they were now using it every day. That's the ripple effect of teaching. You never know how far your words will travel. Here's something practical you can try every time you learn something new. Whether it's a skill, a mindset shift, or a piece of information, challenge yourself to teach it to someone within 24 hours. It could be a conversation, a voice note, a short video, or even a social media post. The act of teaching cements the lesson in your brain and multiplies its reach. You can also start small. If you read an inspiring book, share your 3 biggest takeaways with a friend. If you discover a faster way to complete a task, show a coworker. If you find a perspective that helps you handle stress, explain it to a family member who might benefit. These moments don't have to be formal or complicated. They're simply about passing value along. Another beautiful thing about teaching is that it invites dialogue. When you share what you've learned, other people add their perspectives, experiences, and insights. Sometimes they'll challenge your ideas, and that's a gift because it pushes you to think more critically. Sometimes they'll add a piece you were missing, expanding your understanding. In this way, teaching becomes a 2-way street where everyone grows. And here's something that might surprise you. Teaching is one of the best ways to build confidence. When you speak up, when you put your ideas into words, when you see them land with someone else, you start to believe in your own voice. You realize you have something worth saying. Over time, that confidence spills over into other areas of your life: conversations, presentations, leadership roles. I've met people who told me they weren't teachers, but once they started sharing their experiences, they couldn't stop. A mother who taught her neighbor how to bake bread during lockdown, a teenager who showed his grandfather how to use a smartphone, a man who explained budgeting to his younger cousin. These are all forms of teaching, and they all create connection. You don't have to stand on a stage or lead a classroom to make an impact. If you're afraid to teach because you think you're not ready, remember this: you only need to be a step ahead of the person you're helping. Your imperfections don't disqualify you. They make you relatable. In fact, people often connect more with someone who's still on the journey than with someone who seems to have it all figured out. So here's my call to action. Starting today, decide that you will teach at least one thing you know to someone else this week. Don't wait until it's perfect. Share it in your own words, with your own story. Watch what happens, not just to them, but to you. Because the truth is, teaching isn't just about giving knowledge away. It's about deepening your own. It's about building a legacy, one conversation at a time. And the more you do it, the more you'll see that you're not just a consumer of ideas. You're a creator, connector, a catalyst. That's a powerful way to live, and it's one of the reasons this is one of my favorite things right now.